Hello Legion, this is Hadrian. Thank you for being here and welcome to an in-depth overview or sneak peek perhaps of the brand new December test build and massive clothing update in the Long Dark. Before we talk about this, I have to remind everyone how test branch discussion works and what Hinterland's requests and expectations for the process are. First of all, obviously, at the time this is being recorded and released, this content is still in testing on PC and hasn't yet been released to early access. If you are an early access player on Xbox or PC and are not interested in hearing about update details prior to the official December patch, spoiler alert, we're going to be talking about those, so don't continue watching this if you're not interested in a sneak peek of some tentative patch information. Second of all, please keep in mind that all of the content I'm about to cover is indeed in test branch right now and is not yet available to early access. Even though this is a publicly accessible process, they have openly requested a tight lockdown on discussion of this content while it is not yet available to all early access customers, in particular because there's currently no way for Hinterland to include Xbox users in the test branch. So streamers and YouTubers like me have complete permission to cover it, and plenty of people are totally fine with seeing it, of course, which is why we're doing a YouTube video. But we've been asked to throw out heavy spoiler warnings and to ask everyone to restrain their discussion to official test branch channels or to the comment thread on this video. So again, if you don't want to be spoiled, read the comments at your own risk. The test branch is an extremely useful way for the developers to fine-tune major changes to the Long Dark prior to official patches, so please show extreme discretion in supporting this process and not discussing the content we're about to go over with or among those who might not want to discuss it, else we might not get to do the test branch stuff in the future. So after this content has left the test branch, I will update this video's title and thumbnail to reflect the fact that there's no longer any need to be hush-hush about it. So, make sense? Everyone good? Cool. So, there's a new December patch coming to the Long Dark, and while we've already been assured that it will contain an array of new features and improvements, as we have come to expect, one change, or set of changes really, will arguably overshadow them all, and that is the update to the clothing system. The current version of the test branch, as of December 2nd, is dedicated solely to these changes. That's how big they are. And the changes are extraordinary. I can tell you from having tinkered with it and from having been through several major update cycles as a player of the Long Dark, this is one of the most sweeping and richly substantive changes to a core gameplay mechanic ever to hit the Long Dark. There are more changes like this coming, but this is the biggest one, I think, maybe ever, and certainly in a long time. There are now over 65 clothing items in the Long Dark, almost twice what we've been used to. Not only that, but every single clothing item's 3D model has been redesigned so as to be more fleshed out and to fit better with the Long Dark's overall motif. Every single clothing item has had its stats retuned to ensure good balance and a good range of qualities among all of the different clothing items in the world. Loot tables have also been revised, which loot tables is the game's internal information on where items spawn. And they've been revised to ensure that the search for clothing is as rewarding as possible, with fewer repeat items in specific places, and to ensure that you generally find clothing items where you'd expect to find clothing items. And no, those aren't the biggest highlights either. We're getting there. A completely new section of the user interface has been added, which might just end up being called the Long Dark Paper Doll UI, which, for the first time in the Long Dark, allows you to visualize the clothes your character is wearing, but that's still not the best part. It's not even that Frostbite is coming to the game in December, or that players can now craft a bearskin coat, the details and stats of which will surely be released soon. Where this update really changes things is with the ability to layer multiple clothing items more than one time. In other words, in a major win for realism, it is now possible to wear up to 4 layers of clothing on your torso and legs in the Long Dark. No more picking up an awesome clothing item and thinking you should be able to wear it, realistically speaking, but you can't since you're already wearing those 2 layers, because now you probably can wear it. So let's take a look at the paper doll to see how all of this works. I've just spent the past little while running around Mystery Lake like a crazy person, and now I'm hanging out in the dam. This is a sampling of the clothing that I've found. So as you can see, I'm wearing 4 items on my torso with an overall warmth bonus of 24 degrees. I've got a new hoodie. Again, let me drop this so you can actually see what these clothing items look like in the world. Actually, that's... Oh, cool. I can't pick it up that way. They don't have the... You can't see the little green highlight yet because these items are probably still being worked on, but it's giving me the option to place it. So So yeah, that's what the items kind of look like in the world. That's just one. Let me pick that back up so that we can go to the clothing interface. And the way that the clothing interface is currently implemented, this is, I want to emphasize that this is for the test build. They're working on a more streamlined way to bring it into the interface. But for now, it's as simple as just clicking on a clothing item and clicking on manage. So pretty straightforward, but they're working on making a way to make it even more straightforward. So as you can see, I'm wearing a new hoodie over a decent sweatshirt, over a decent simple parka, over a new down vest. And if I were to take some of these items off, first of all, as you can see, these are underneath my outermost layer of this decent simple parka. So now you can see, you know, the new down vest is all that's left. And then maybe you could take this off. It gives you a complete representation of what the character is wearing. And let's see, let's go ahead and put this stuff back on. We'll go over these stats in just a moment, but feel free to just soak in all of this information. Also notice that you can wear 2 different items on your head. And then over here, I'm wearing thermal underwear, worn jeans, and combat pants. I'm wearing 2 different kinds of pants. You can have 2 different kinds of socks. I have these ragged climbing socks. I haven't found any other socks in the world this particular playthrough. But then notice I also have some trail boots as well. Lots of different types of shoes have been available to me since I started exploring. Also notice the sprint percentage changes, which we're going to talk about in a moment. So another major change coming in this update is something you may have already noticed, which is clothes have new stats as well. First, wind resistance, you should know this, has been removed entirely. So you might have, let's see, if we go to actions, can we see, no, that's just harvest. I just want to see this is why they're still working on the interface. There we go. That's what I want to look at. So notice wind chill bonus is just, right now it's still in the game, but it's been removed. None of these items have a wind chill bonus, okay? While wind chill will still affect the temperature your survivor is feeling, clothes resistance to temperature is now based solely on just that, the temperature, which of course combines air and wind chill as it always has in the game. This should be a simpler way to look at air temperature going forward. So clothing now just has a single stat for warmth bonus that combines these 2 effects, if you will. So again, this is part of the reason that clothing stats have been retuned. So let me pull this back up so you can continue to ogle it, right? Okay, so as for what's new, okay, one of the biggest changes, and I guess, tell you what, let me actually step outside and see if we can experience this change. Oh, wait. I mean, I'm not playing right now, so it doesn't really matter, but I feel weird leaving a lit storm lantern just hanging out. Man, that fuel meter was full when I started recording this video. Okay, so we're going to go outside and see if wetness of clothes can be demonstrated really quick. Might not be. And if not, if it takes too long, then I'll just tell you what it is. But I would love for the indicator to actually pop up while I'm out here. So let's walk around for a moment. All right, now if we come out here, let's go ahead and wear this hoodie because we had taken that off earlier. Okay, nothing is showing yet, so I'm going to stand out here for a moment, and we're going to keep going over the new interface, and maybe the new indicators will pop up. But anyway, waterproofness is another major change that they've added to clothing. It's basically just how water repellent this item is, which modifies how quickly it becomes wet. And I'll talk about clothes being wet and clothes getting frozen in just a second, because it's an entirely new threat in the Long Dark. Weight, of course, is how much an individual clothing item weighs. This is not a new stat, but we're going to talk a little bit about, you know, the implications of this new system, because as you might be thinking, hang on, let's have a look at our clothing screen here. This is more weight than usual. Look at how encumbered my character is. I'm not carrying that much more than I normally carry in the Long Dark. I mean, I've got a lot of water on me right now, and I've got some wood. I've got a storm lantern, but I only have 1 antiseptic bottle. Sometimes the multiple antiseptics can weigh you down. And I think I mentioned I've got the books, or maybe I didn't mention it. And the rifle, of course, always takes 8 pounds. But still, I'm not carrying that heavy of a load. And I mean, when you scroll down, this is not a lot of stuff, but I'm carrying 77 pounds. This is a new factor when it comes to the weight of clothing. So this is something we're just going to have to consider going forward, and has some really cool gameplay ramifications. So, character's getting cold. So, of course, condition is still, the percent range that affects the current physical condition. Item warmth, here's the interesting part, scales with condition. Actually, wait, that's always been the case. So this is being mentioned, never mind, I'm reading through some of the patch notes. This is being described in the patch notes as if it's new, but it's not. So anyway, item warmth, as always, scales with condition. So an item's capacity to provide warmth, I'm just reading verbatim, is compromised as it becomes more worn out. Now, you might be looking down here at the very bottom in this little red bar going, what's up with sprint 90%? What's the little red bar? How does that affect running? Oh my God, there's a red bar. What's happening? So when you're wearing a lot of clothing, like 4 layers of clothes, it's a lot harder to move all your joints the way that you should be able to move them, right? That's the idea behind this maximum sprint bonus, is the game's current way of representing limited mobility, thanks to multiple layers, all these new layers, is a cap on your sprint meter. So I only have 90% of my total sprint meter available because I'm wearing 4 layers. Okay, that's my character getting cold. I want to make sure I don't have a random member of the wildlife community walk up to me while I'm recording this video. So I don't have any of the indicators popping up, but what I've seen so far is that they come up, maybe they'll come up here, is that they actually overlay the items in the interface when an item is wet. It's just a blue indicator. It's very, very, very apparent. So that's one of the ways that you can tell that items are actually getting wet or frozen. So here's another thing that you might want to know about, which is how clothing actually freezes. In the Long Dark, you have these meters, right? And as long as none of those meters hit bottom, your life is not actually in danger. You just need to be careful, right? Wetness and freezing kind of work the same way. If your clothes are getting wet, as they creep closer to 100% wetness, they begin to slowly freeze. A frozen item is kind of like one of your indicators hitting bottom. Frozen items lose even more of their warmth value than wet items do, and they become even heavier than wet items do. You're already experiencing these effects, similar to the way you experience some adverse effects when these meters are lower than typical, or than similar to how you experience certain effects when these meters are low, but not necessarily empty. But you start to experience severe effects when items are frozen. An item's warmth value when wet also depends on the material type, so wool retains more warmth when wet than cotton. So it's a very detailed system, okay? And when items are actually frozen, you have to put them near a fire, or you have to wear them in interior locations that are above freezing temperatures for a while for that freezing to go away. Each clothing item also has a different rate at which it dries, depending on the type of material that it's made of. So having gone over this paper doll, if you're looking at the screen and all these clothing items and thinking about weight, again, because we mentioned how much weight these items are going to take up, you're right to be curious. As of this update, and for the first time in the Long Dark, daily and objective by objective choices of clothing are going to be a gameplay factor. It's not going to be as easy to wear the best clothing you have everywhere you go. If your condition is dropping and you're hurting for medical supplies in the middle of the night, for instance, you may choose to bundle up in heavy layers for a short-range excursion to the woods for some old man's beard. This would reduce your carrying capacity, but increase survivability in that tight situation. On the other hand, if you're in prime position, prime health, and you need to scavenge a broad swath of the world before the day gets away from you, you can dress light, so you can be nimble and quick and not weighed down and be able to carry more. And on top of all that, on top of the coverage system, on top of having to make decisions about when you're wearing what clothing from day to day and from moment to moment, frostbite is coming to the Long Dark. When a portion of the body is unprotected, like for instance, if I were to take off these mittens and if I were to take off shoes and socks, when a portion of the body is unprotected or covered by frozen clothing, so that's one of the reasons the frozen clothing is something to be concerned of, that body part will begin to accrue frostbite risk, which is a percent risk very similar to the other risks players can currently experience while in game, such as risk of infection after being bitten. If the percentage hits 100, that portion of the body will be permanently frostbitten. The effect of frostbite is a permanent reduction of your maximum possible condition. You'll never be able to reach 100% condition as a player character again in that game. The more frostbitten areas you have, and the extremities such as hands and feet, by the way, will be more susceptible than the torso and legs. The longer you go with those kinds of frostbite injuries and the more you accrue, the lower your maximum possible health will be. Crazy stuff. This isn't everything that's coming to the Long Dark in December, but it's a giant piece of it. Feel free to discuss in the comments below. Just remember the spoiler warning, and remember not to disseminate this information to general audiences that may not want to hear about it while this content is still in the sectioned off test branch. Thanks very much for watching, though. If you enjoyed this overview, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel to follow along. If you are newer to my channel, you should probably be aware I regularly feature content from the Long Dark, usually in my 6 p.m. slot, particularly in a seasonal series called Against All Odds. Comments are always welcome, so let me know what you think, and I'll see you next video.